it's not enough to install a cookie banner, something where you have to click either accept all or save. But actually, you need to put in some effort. I thought you were just building up.
No, I wasn't.
No, it's about wrongly implemented cookie banners.
Wrongly implemented cookie banners.
Or consent management done wrong.
Because we have seen that so many times actually on websites, right?
Yes.
Where do we start with that?
What is the issue?
What is the issue, right? Or what is the goal? What's the target, first of all? Maybe how? So what does the correct way of implementing consent management? What does it look like?
What is consent management?
What is consent management? Okay, let's actually start. Yeah, just general understanding for ourselves, clarification. Yeah. So when we're talking about consent management, it's always about the GDPR, the European guidelines about implementing privacy guidelines for website visitors and so on, right? Mm-hmm. And this is mostly perceived by people that it's 99 of the times it's like a person it's like about perceived as being the cookie law and stuff like that. Whereas it's not exactly about cookies, but about, how do you best put that? What is it about? About protecting, the privacy of people and ensuring that that the website that you visit doesn't send data to other companies and sources without you opting into that or without you being notified in depth about that.
Yeah. You should be aware of what is done with your personal data, how this is treated, and you should also be able, excuse me, and you should also be able to basically stop the processing of your data, right?
Yeah.
And ask for the deletion of your data. And for that, of course, you just need to know first who has all of your data. I guess that's like a rat's tail. Like a lot of things that come together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think there are so many things you need to consider, and we got to be careful not about trying to make this the huge GDPR topic, because there's so many things to talk about. Also what and how to put that into the privacy policy and stopping people from collecting your data and so on. But the basic thing, right, that everyone got so used to is that when you visit a website these days, you will be shown some kind of banner asking you to allow cookies.
Yes.
And one of the most common things is that there is this big button which says allow cookies, and it will just accept all those cookies. And then there is another button which typically says something like save. So, and when you hit that one, it basically says you do not allow cookies on the website beyond those that are really necessary. What I'm personally interested in, Dominic, what is actually your default behavior when you go to a website? What do you click?
My default behavior is actually to click save.
Nice. Actually nice, because my default behavior is clicking allow all. And I just recently started changing that. The main reason I usually click allow all is because I am many times too scared about people implementing basically their services in a wrong way that I would not get the full experience of the website when I just click save. So I'm kind of manipulating myself, and I just recently decided that's so odd. Kind of, I know so very well how it should work, and it shouldn't be up to me to make that decision. And actually, clicking save should usually give me the exact same experience on a website like when clicking allow all, only that in some cases, some occasions, I might need to be asked for an extra opt-in to specific services. Or at least I believe that's the way how it should work.
Yes.
Yes or no?
Difficult. No, I like the thing I'm thinking about also, like I've seen this recently more and more that there are like content producers, right? That have this content management and they phrase it differently, right? They say, okay, allow all cookies or get a subscription and pay 99 cents a month or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So and like I kind of can relate to that, or I understand them because they are making money with the content and you're reading it for free, right? And they need to make money and they make money with advertising. And if you don't accept the tracking, then you're like, they're not getting paid by their ad providers. So that's like, but of course I do think like, and this with this, I have to agree with you that the experience should be the same, right?
Yeah. I didn't think about that actually before, that way. I'm very well aware of this saying that when something's for free, you are the product, basically, because your data typically is sold to other people. But I've never thought about it like that on websites. But at the same time, yeah, you're absolutely right. I've seen this so many times, specifically on publishing websites where they have this option, accept everything or get a subscription. At the same time, I feel this is exactly not what the GDPR is about.
Exactly. That's also you have to see what did the cookie law or like what did GDPR accomplish with this content management, right? And it's usually, okay, you divide your visitors into two main groups. One group that clicks save, one that clicks accept all. There's maybe a small fraction that actually goes into the cookies, into like the list of things and says, okay, I really explicitly want to accept those cookies and I really don't want to do that. But it's like so much work, right? Like I when I visit a website, I want to see the content of the website. I don't want to think about this other stuff. So I think what needs to be done is that browsers handle that on a global level, right? That maybe you have these groups that are defined by like some committee, right? Necessary marketing, analytics, or like performance or whatever, and so on. And then you automatically on a website, the browser accepts the cookies that you opted in for in the first place, right? And I think the only thing that you can do to do that currently is not to accept all. Like there are cookie blockers that will just like hide the things, but there's not something like, okay, I want to accept certain cookies on all websites, right?
Yeah. I remember rather well when Apple announced a couple of years ago that they're going to implement tracking, blocking technology into Safari by default, and also will be like to block advertisers from creating user profiles by default. And back then I thought that was a pretty bold move, and I couldn't imagine how a world like that would look like. But we just got so used these days to all these cookie banners that I'm rethinking that, or at least I feel there should be a world where this is the default behavior, and like privacy, everything works like privacy first, and then you opt into certain things. But like the goal of the GDPR thing was also to educate people, or to ensure that people only opt into things that they understand, and to make it easy to people to understand that. And that's one of the biggest problems I feel with these cookie banners, that I don't feel people actually understand what this is about to the fullest. I think people develop some behavior and just say, okay, that's it. Just like, for example, the standard cookie notice, at least we have it in Germany, I think, like that, with using Borlabs, for example. There's a standard cookie notice which also says, when you're under 16, you need the allowance of your parents to move forward. And I'm always thinking, this is just such legal nonsense, kind of, because I cannot imagine that any 15-and-a-half-year-old would sit there and say, oh, okay, I'm not going to click anything here because I must not go to this website. Similarly to like when you have legal terms on some kind of product, and it's like 20 pages of written stuff, and then you are forced to scroll down and clicks this check box of hereby I say that like I read everything in detail, I understood everything, and they accept every single term. This is just like one of the biggest lies ever. No one or hardly anyone reads that. I actually know people who do that, but
first print out the terms, read them,
Yeah.
and then you can go back to the website. Yeah. So yeah, but let's get back to the initial
Yes.
topic, right? So what is the problem then? Like, what do we see over and over again with websites that have cookie banners, consent like management, pop-ups implemented?
Right. So I would say, like, to finish off what's expected, right? We have this, we talked about the accept all button, we have the save button, and basically before that cookie banner opens, none of those options that you should opt in should be loaded by default, right? So what should load? What should you allow to load on a page without giving any extra consent? In the best case scenario, only local requests to the website, right? Not loading any external services and not setting any types of tracking cookies to identify the user.
Yeah. That's the thing again, right? It gets complicated. And even like sometimes I always look at these things and I'm like, okay, yeah, if you want to do it 100% correct, what's the way to do it? And then, okay, yeah, but nobody does it that way, right? And then it's like, okay, let's implement it differently. I mean, the first thing is saving a language, right? Or a country. That's like the first thing that you basically do if you have, for example, like GeoIP stuff, right? So you have a multi-market website, you come to the main URL, and then you get redirected to the specific country that you're from. Like usually what we do, we save this information in the cookie, right? Because maybe the person wants to change his location because he's just on vacation, right? And wants to go to a different market site. And the next time he comes to the root URL, we actually want to direct him to the country and to the market that he has chosen and not the one that's picked by his IP, right? So this is like a necessary cookie for the website to work. It doesn't save any personal data, so we're actually fine to do that, right? Yeah. If we, however, stored the IP address with the country, then it would be personal data again. And then, I don't know, it's still necessary, but would we need his consent before saving that? I guess so.
To answer this question, I recently read some actual law text, and it is not about the European guidance, GDPR law, but it's about the German law, the Gesetz über den Datenschutz und den Schutz der Privatsphäre in der Telekommunikation und bei Telemedien, Telekommunikations-Telemedien-Datenschutzgesetz, TTDSG.
Yay. Is that the old one or the new one?
Oh gosh.
Because there was always like this telemedien, because this is actually the cookie law, right? And
that's
the German cookie law.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. But it's not about cookies. That's actually the point I want to make. I read this like paragraph 25 and it says, I just put it into Google Translate real quick. Storage of information in the end user's terminal equipment or access to information already stored in the terminal equipment shall only be permitted if the end user has consented on the basis of clear and comprehensive information. So it's not saying specifically cookies, but storing information in the terminal equipment or accessing that information in any form. Could be cookie, could be local storage, could be anything. You need to opt in. And then there are two cases in which that's not necessary. And one is the very significant one. The second one is if the storage of information in the end user's terminal equipment or the access to information already stored is absolutely necessary so that the provider of a telemedia service can provide a telemedia service expressly requested by the user.
Mm-hmm.
And this is typically what I think people then referring to when they talk about the necessary cookies. But it's not only necessary technically from a developer point of view, but also to deliver a service that is expressly requested by the user. So how would we apply that? Let's talk about one example. When you have this YouTube video player and you have something a content blocker installed that would not load the YouTube player directly on the page, but would first like add a banner on top. Then you have this extra banner where you can click show video, load video from YouTube, and most of the times you have a checkbox below saying, remember my decision. And I remember someone from the team also had this question coming up. Well, but if I click this checkbox and this checkbox saves a cookie, don't we need people to educate people about that and that they have to consent that we save that cookie? And the general answer, also according to this law, is no, you don't need that, because you're just doing something that you have to do. You have to persist that information on the user's device to follow the need, how do they say it, to deliver a service expressly requested by the user. So whenever it's clear to people that when you do this, or we need to do something basically to fulfill your wish, then it's okay.
Yeah,
but it
can
be hard to decide on a case by case.
Yeah, but I mean this overlay is basically also only a cookie banner basically wants to take away this case by case interaction, right? Mm-hmm. So that you don't get the overlay, that the video loads immediately.
Yeah,
and this is, I think, like a bigger problem, and I would prefer it to be the other way around, right? That most people don't have a cookie banner, but use the case-by-case stuff. But it's not always as clear where you need to give your consent in order to do what, right? Because for tracking, like there is no, yes, please track me now. A button at the top of the page. But it's, and that's where the consent banner comes in then, right?
Absolutely. Okay, so how do you check? Like we started this was talking about that we're seeing so many cookie banners wrongly implemented. What does that mean typically? How do you check if something is, or how do you notice that something is implemented in the wrong way, a cookie banner?
Well, you open the website, you don't accept anything, like you don't even hit save or anything on the cookie banner, but you open the website in a private window, and then you check the application tab in your browser or wherever you can see the cookies that a website has installed or a domain has installed on your browser. And then when you do so, there should be no cookie that has personal data, right? There can be cookie that doesn't have personal data, but again, personal data is really hard to, or it's a broad topic because your IP address is personal data, and also like a fingerprint of your browser is like a personal data. Anything that can be associated to you. That's why I would say like a country code is not personal data. Well, actually, but because it's too broad, right? Too many people have the same country code. Like, I mean, you can still track that this person, like, but you cannot, if somebody gets your country code, he cannot do anything with it, right? He cannot log in anywhere and like. hijack this information.
Yeah, but it's like just one more piece of information. So,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
where it starts getting hard, maybe.
Exactly. That's
but yeah.
So
Okay,
should there be
no cookies? Generally,
no
in the
cookies?
best case scenario, there should be no cookies.
Yes.
If there are some cookies, you might want to look at it, what it is. Specifically, when it's cookie from third-party domains, then I'm always like, oh,
Yes.
that looks suspicious.
Exactly. And you should also check if any scripts or styles or fonts or images or if any request to an external service has been made, right? So,
yeah. So when you go to, for example, the Chrome developer tools and there go to the network tab and refresh the browser in a private window, then you see what kind of requests are made, what's loaded from which domains. There's this one tab which shows like all the domains. And in the best case scenario, all the domains are only, or all the assets that are loaded are only from the domain that you're currently on. And no request is made to something like Google Ad Services, Facebook, and all kinds of other external sources. Whenever that's the case, and the more URLs, external URLs are there, yeah, again, the more suspicious it is that there's stuff happening that shouldn't be happening. And there are some rare exceptions though when that is okay. And I think this is specifically right now about this whole Google Fonts topic and so on. That sometimes it might be okay to load something externally, but I think we don't need to go into detail today too much about that. But sometimes it's just very obvious that you go to a website, you check this in the private tab, you see the cookie notice still being open, being visible, having nothing clicked, and all those requests are coming in. Cookies are set, ad services are loaded, and so on. And when you click accept all, you hit save, basically nothing happens. And that's something that is way too common. I'm seeing way too often. And I think the biggest problem usually is that the non-technical people don't really understand what's happening and how they can check that. And they need to trust their technical people, the developers, that they did it the right way. But at the same time, technical people, developers, most of the times sometimes they don't really understand, I'd say, what's needed. And just like, because it's such a weird topic and also you need to know about some legal stuff and what is okay, what's not. But many times, like when everything is just loaded, I think that's just like a technical issue that people didn't spot at some point.
Yeah. It's like a perfect, this would be the perfect show for like marketing for a service, for like a content management tool, because there are a lot of them out there that actually will monitor your website, right? Mm-hmm. So there are tools where you just enter the URL and then actually your website gets crawled, and also not only your homepage gets crawled, but everything gets crawled, and then they check what kind of cookies are being set and so on. And based on that, they will create the consent or the cookie banner for you, right? Mm-hmm. That's possible with like, there are external services that do that. There are also some WordPress plugins that do it that way. The thing is, I have never had a good experience with those because also like
why not?
Yeah, well, maybe initially, but then you kind of also rely on that and you think, okay, now I'm bulletproof, right? But that's usually not the case, because sometimes you need to, like, the external scripts are only loaded when you click a button, when you interact with the website. And this, of course, like an automated tool, like, yes, of course, there are ways to do that, but I don't think that anyone has implemented it that way. And then you get also like a really long list of like cookie names, right? Like all the cookie names. And sometimes it's like really hard to find information about these cookies, because actually you would need, like, if you do it that way, then you need to write for every cookie exactly what this cookie does, right? And usually it's enough to have like, okay, this is from company or domain XY, that's company so-and-so, location so-and-so, and the potential cookies are these. And this is to ensure that something can be loaded, right? And you don't have to go that much into detail. If you go like the other route, it's like it becomes like really, really hard. And I feel like also these databases, it's a shame that these endeavors for having like a unified database for all the cookies out there hasn't really taken off. There have been some attempts, but I feel like not really a lot of people use those. And then again, the quality of the data also like decreases, right?
You mean creating a database which stores the information about what services are creating what kind of cookies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something like that. I forgot the name, but it's, and I don't want to like, I don't know. I don't want to advertise some companies that might want to make money out of that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But yeah.
So I think those monitoring services, they have multiple challenges, right? So a service that would automatically detect if or what is loaded on your page would need to do that correctly, would need to go basically to every page on your website.
Yes.
Crawl it and then see what's loaded. But to really detect it safely, it would need to go to the pages and then even interact with them, click something. So this would be very hard to do it reliably. You get a first idea or general sense if something is loaded, like on the homepage, on some templates, but to do it really well and precisely, I think you have to look into it manually and from a developer point of view, to look into what plugins are installed, what services are used, scanning the database in a CMS to see what kind of external services are integrated and so on, to do it really well, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a really hard job to do, right? Because and I think this all should also be integrated more in the CMS that you use, right? Because, for example, if you use WordPress and you have you have this OEmbed functionality, right? You can basically drop any link to an OEmbed provider, YouTube, Vimeo, or Facebook, like all of these social media platforms. You can drop any link into your content and it will automatically convert that into an iframe that loads the content. Mm-hmm. So that means that whenever, you can, of course, check the website and say what kind of services you use and then put that into your cookie banner content management tool. But the moment that an editor decides to use a new platform, you will have a discrepancy there. And that's like a big issue. So that means the CMS should maybe be aware of external stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And actually content management should be integrated as a first class citizen, so to say, into your CMS. And also as the editing department or whatever, as editors, you should have a clear content guideline to know what's allowed and what not. But usually, I hardly ever see a client having that, right? Mm. So that means if you find something interesting, on social network X, Y, you just put it in, and don't even think about this.
People need to be much more educated today about what to do and how to do it, and also be aware of responsive behavior and mobile behavior on a website and integrating content, right? And there are many automatic solutions, right? Also like content blocking tools that just by default do not allow loading external service on the website and then load that later. But again, there might be exceptions to the rule, or these might be very specific or very general, or they might cover all services somehow or not, or protocols. But if they block every external content, then that's probably the safest way to do. But I agree with you that I just like this idea of not trying to hack it afterwards and kind of like allow everyone to do anything on the website and then try to catch those cases, but rather to think about that right from the start and to ensure, for example, when entering content to a website, embedding content to a website, that the CMS knows about that, is aware of that, and that you can then, with a hook or something, implement your own solution and your filter basically to decide what to do with each of those integrated contents and scripts and so on. Yeah. But that's, again, also where I feel it gets so much more complicated, because it's not when we're talking about embedded content, but when we think about tracking technologies, many times that's even out of our hands, right? We implement the basis for tracking like Google Tag Manager, and then someone can basically load all kinds of scripts. And when the Google Tag Manager is loaded before giving consent, because you expect that the Google Tag Manager scripts would wait for consent, then this has to not go wrong, right? But it's so easy to implement it the wrong way, and just people need to collaborate so much about this topic and need to be educated about this.
I actually think all these tracking scripts and these like third-party stuff that doesn't require any or that don't require any interaction from the user, this is actually really easy to solve, right? Because as you said, most of the time, like if you use something like some tag manager thingy, then it's really easy to say, okay, I just wait, or even if the content management is external too, you usually have a good integration between those. Right? So okay, when this consent is given, you know that you can load this script and so on. So you can do a good mapping there. And this is education, right? Or this is like the base education, that somebody actually has to know the tag manager and the consent management tool and configure it in a way that this is safe. And then it's easy, because the tag manager will only load the scripts that you have consented to. Done.
Yeah.
But for me, the more complicated part is really like this content that you put in, or like maybe also components that you develop, where you load an extra script where you don't really think about this then, right? Where maybe you need to display data from like an external service. A lot of the times it's like job profiles when we connect to like have job forms or something like that, or even like MailChimp having the validation, for example, the form validation for a MailChimp. That's also like can be loaded via an external script from then MailChimp itself, from these. But then you would again need to have the consent before you do so. So I think there should be a trend that you load more and more stuff only from like your local server, right? That you do this privacy first stuff wherever you can, but where you actually need these and then you should be aware and should make a proactive decision of using an external service, and this should be like the exception. And once this exception is made, that you then know, okay, this has to definitely go into a cookie banner, and there the user has to give consent, right? But do it that way, not that, okay, we just load everything from everywhere and we just like, I don't know, load 5,000 different tracking scripts. Yeah, why not? It's free. Let's do this. Come on. Let's,
It should be privacy by design, kind of, right?
I mean, that's one of the GDPR things, right?
It's one of the targets, right? Yeah, it should be like privacy by design. That and that involves specifically other external services that you would like to load, maybe forms doing validation, tracking service, or whatever. That they also start thinking about that. And till this day, it's still very European and specific German topic, because I think we in Germany have the strongest, the hardest implementation of the GDPR in Europe. Or that's what I heard. But still, I think this is just the direction it's going to, and what people companies should pay attention to. But at the same time, like editors, as you said, need to be educated, need to be aware at least. Like it's not that everyone needs to know all the details, but there needs to be basic awareness on a side of editors and marketers and tracking people that this is a topic they have to be on top with, and that they have to clarify and talk to, for example, developers and other people on how that's implemented, because most of the times there is some kind of connection that needs to happen, some kind of almost like an API, right? Where there needs to be handover and agreement on how the implementation works to ensure that it can be the privacy can be accomplished, basically, because it's not just 100% technical. The solution typically is technical, but yeah, the technical people need to also be made aware of what's going to happen on the marketing, on the editing side.
Yeah.
So
is that a good conclusion?
Maybe that's a good conclusion. Yeah. What will be your advice when it comes to wrongly implemented cookie banners? How can people check it, or what should people do to ensure that doesn't happen?
I mean, the thing is, the best advice I can give is it's not enough to install a cookie banner.
Yeah.
Like it's not enough to just show something where you have to click either accept all or save. That's not the case. You need to put in some effort. You need to see what kind of external services you're using, what kind of cookies you're loading, and then you need to prevent those from being loaded before somebody gives consent. So again, don't just think, okay, we need a cookie banner, let's install one and done, but actually educate yourself about what needs to be done and how to do it, and then do it.